We're back in the man cave. I promised a video on how to take care of your flintlock gun so that it fires somewhere between 99 and 100% of the time. 1% is going to be your fault. First, let's look at the lock itself. Let's say you're a professor at an esteemed university and you have in an engineering department, and you have some of the brightest minds in the world sitting in front of you, and you tell them, the challenge today is to design a mechanical device where one lever activates another lever, and the second lever releases the kinetic energy stored in a leaf spring, and that linear force is transformed into a rotational force. That rotational force takes a sharp flint and will strike some hot shards of metal off of a frisson into a small amount of gunpowder. That primary charge will be ignited by that spark, and that will ignite a larger secondary charge. That secondary charge is going to create enough expansive gases to propel a round ball out the muzzle of a rifle at about 1,800 feet per second. Oh yeah, it has to fit in the palm of your hand. Couple of more caveats. No AutoCAD. No 3D printers. You can't even use digital readouts on any of the machine shop equipment that you're going to use. And any machine shop equipment that you're going to use has to be driven either by water or by steam. I don't even know if I'm going to allow you to use a slide ruler. What, you don't know what a slide ruler is? Well, that is the environment that the flintlock action was created in. It's probably one of the world's most complex mechanical little devices and one of the world's most simple devices. I mean, it's part of what is widely considered to be a primitive weapon, so it can't be that complicated, yet it actually is. When you look at the intricacy of the parts inside of the lock, it's nothing short of amazing. So how do we get this to work all the time? And why are people today having such a difficult time with it? When you think about it, these were shipped over in, I will say 1750 or thereabouts, and gunsmiths used basically primitive hand tools to create these masterpieces. And they were sold to backwoodsmen who were basically illiterate, and they managed to make these weapons function all the time. Yet all of the education we have today, you put a weapon like this in some of our hands and people just mess it up time and time again. So what we're going to do is we're going to break this down into three parts. I'm going to tell you what I do. Now, what I do isn't what everybody else does. The second part, we're going to suggest some things that you might do, things that other people do. The third part is I'm going to remind you of all the dumb things you're not supposed to do. First of all, there are some basic elements that you have to take care of in order to make your flintlock go off all the time. The most important one is no oil in your barrel. Your barrel has to be bone dry. Let's say you have a lightly oiled barrel. It's just the way you took it off the rack after cleaning it last year, and you ran a little patch down with some oil on it, and it's been sitting in your gun cabinet, and you take it out, and there might be 1 or 2 drops of oil in the bottom of your barrel. Now you're going to pour your powder charge down there, and it's going to instantly soak up that oil. At least the stuff that didn't adhere to the side of your barrel on your lightly oiled barrel. Then you're going to take a patch round ball, which is tighter than tight usually, and you're going to force that down, and it's going to wipe any oil that's remaining on the side of your barrel and pack it right on top of your powder charge. So you got mush on the bottom and mush on the top. Now, what if one of those little granules of mush powder gets stuck in your flash hole? Now, you're going to have to depend on the flash in the pan to punch through that mush and block flash hole to ignite the remaining dry powder, which is either not going to happen, or you're going to get a delayed fire, and either way, you're going to miss whatever it is you're shooting at. So what I do is I use moonshine. I was happened to have been given some that was not palatable. There's no way you could consume it. So I use it for cleaning my guns. And I'm going turkey hunting in a couple of weeks. So what I'll do is, before I leave on my trip, I'll take some patches and I'll go up and down that bore until it is bone dry. And then I'll do a couple more patches to make sure it is bone dry. You cannot have any oil at all if you want your flintlock rifle to go off. It has to be dry. I can't emphasize that enough. Then your flint has to be sharp. Another thing you have to do is you need a bent hole pick. How often do you have to pick your flash hole? Every single time you use it. When you pour primer into the pan, either just after you do it or even before, you want to pick that hole. You want to make a channel for that flash to go inside, and and then when you do that, you're going to make almost a little chamber inside. It's like a micro chamber. And that flash is going to be exposed to as many edges of black powder as possible, and one or two or several or all of them are going to ignite, and you're going to have an instant fire. So you want a dry barrel, sharp flint, pick the flash hole. That is about 90% of what you have to worry about. Other than that, you have to worry about keeping the powder in your flash pan dry. You don't want to overcharge it. Somewhere around half, a little bit more, and that's it. That's how I use mine, and I've never had a misfire. Not ever? No, not ever. It's that simple. Let's talk about some things that other guys do that gives them a great deal of success with their flintlock guns. When it comes to cleaning, guys use a product that's called hot soapy water. It's made of soap and hot water. Hot soapy water. Works. It works. Other guys use a product called Ballistol. I've never used it, so I can't comment on it, but I know guys use it and they're successful with it. Another product that guys use is brake cleaner fluid. That works really great. The thing those two products have in common is that they evaporate fast. So you have a solution that gets the carbon out, then it dries fast, and you end up with what? A dry barrel. One of the things guys do, if they're not using that before they load, some guys, let's say, have a percussion gun, a hawking gun, and it's the first time you're going out in the season and you have your lightly oiled barrel, guys will snap off 2 or 3 or 4 caps to burn or flash that oil off. If it's a flintlock gun, guys will put some powder down the barrel, and then they'll prime their pan and shoot that off, or even shoot a light load off. That gives what is commonly referred to as a dirty barrel, because there's an old saying that says the dirty barrel will always shoot. Why? Because it's dry. Notice the common theme there. It's what works. One thing that I use when I'm shooting is I use 3F powder. I started out with some smaller caliber flintlocks, and then when I moved up with a 45 and a 50, I happened to have a lot of 3F powder on hand, so I kept on using it. When I got my 20 gauge gun that I use strictly for turkey hunting, I had a whole bunch of 3F powder, and guess what? It works great. So 3F powder is widely accepted as very easy to ignite. You can even use it as a priming powder in your pan. So if it's easy to ignite in your pan, it only stands to reason that it's easy to ignite in your barrel. Now, lots of guys use 2F powder for the larger calibers, 54 and 50 caliber. A lot of guys use 2F powder, and they experience a lot of success with that. So if you have 2F powder at hand, whatever you do, don't sell it, because it'll work. I use 3F, and that's what works for me. So that's about it for what other guys use that that are successful, and what I use for my success is just that something took me down one path, and their experiences took them down a different path, and we both ended up at the same place: the dry barrel, a sharp flint, and a vent pick. So hopefully that will give you some options and try a few things out and see what works best for you. I want to bring up a couple of issues that I see on internet forums on a pretty regular basis and give you my opinion and how I address these two specific issues. First one is when guys have been out hunting all day and they plan on going out again the next day. A lot of people will discharge their firearm at the end of the day, come home, and then the next day start off with a brand new, fresh, dry load, and that, for some reason, gives them the confidence that their gun will perform when they want it to. I fell into this trap when I first started hunting. I was using a Lyman Great Plains rifle, a percussion rifle, and 50 caliber. And I was convinced that this is what you had to do. All the propaganda that I had been reading all said the same thing. So every day before I would get back to my truck, I'd discharge my firearm and go home, clean it and load it, and the next day I would go back out again. Funny thing is, it went off every time, and there's no reason to think that it wouldn't have gone off the next day or the day after that. Another way guys try and deal with that is when they come home, they don't put a fresh load in, but they're afraid to bring the gun into the house because the rationalization is that when you bring a cold gun into the house, condensation will form and be absorbed by the gunpowder. I've never experienced that. I always take my guns in the house when I'm done hunting. And I've never seen condensation on the outside of the barrel and therefore not on the inside of the barrel. My reasoning is that any moisture that might have been absorbed from being out in a damp or cold environment during the day will be driven off overnight in the warm environment, and the next day my load will be bone dry and ready to rock and roll. And it's proven to be very successful for me. So that's the way I handle that issue. What we're going to do now is I'm going to show you a video that I did the last day of deer hunting season. The first of the season, I was fortunate enough to fill a doe tag, and then it was time to try and get a big buck. Well, unfortunately, that didn't come to fruition. So I've been hunting for about 5 weeks, about 30 days in the woods. I hunted in cold weather, warm weather, wet weather, snowy weather. I'm in Canada, so the weather can get really cold. And when I come home, I would bring it in the house every time. So at the end of it, I took a video because I wanted to be able to show that after 30 days, my gun would go off. Now that didn't go quite as planned. I had the rifle balanced on shooting sticks, and I was trying to hold my cell phone in the other hand, and just as the gun was about to go off, the phone slipped a little bit, so I didn't get it in frame quite the way I wanted to, but it still proves the point. When you watch a video, I want you to do two things. I want you to listen for the flint hitting the prison, and then I want you to listen for the muzzle blast. One sound. Ignition was absolutely instant. Just what I expected. I knew that's the way it was going to go, and I had every confidence that it would do that. I had every confidence that after 30 days, if I would have seen a buck, I'd have been dragging him out of the woods. Unfortunately, that didn't work out. So these are things that work for me. My way is not the only way. And if you're doing something and it's working for you, then definitely keep on doing it. But if you're having some troubles, give these things a try, and maybe you'll experience some more success. There's two additional topics I'd like to bring up. One is Pyrodex, and the other is saboted bullets. they're sort of related in the way that people are trying to make their rifle do something it was never designed to do. In the case of Pyrex, oftentimes I'll see this question brought up on different internet forums. Some people want to know, is it okay to use Pyrex powder in their traditional muzzleloading rifle, whether it's percussion or flint? The answer is no. Now, there's nothing wrong with the question. Somebody's just getting involved. They want to know what works and what doesn't work. Pyrex is readily available both in powder and pellet form. They want to know, hey, is it okay to use this? The problem is the ignition point of Pyrex is a lot higher than black powder, so you won't get reliable ignition. So the best thing to do is to stick with black powder. Now, as I said, there's nothing wrong with the question, but I'll always read these threads because I know somewhere in that thread, somebody is going to say, well, you just pour a little black powder down the barrel and then you sit your Pyrex on top of that. I'm going to call bullshit on that. Nobody does that. And if they did, why would you? You have a two-stage system that by some miracle works with a fair degree of reliability. And if you're careful, it works almost certainly with reliability. And you're going to change that into a three-stage combustion system. Now, traditionally, you have your flash in the pan, ignite your main charge, and out goes your bullet. With the percussion, the percussion cap is your first source of ignition, and your main charge is your second source of ignition. What they're suggesting is you have a three-stage system where your flash in the pan ignites the black powder in the barrel, and that ignites the Pyrex. Why? It's just so frustrating to make it that much more complicated. Stick with black powder, you'll be a lot happier. That's the bottom line. The second thing is saboted bullets. Your gun was designed to shoot a patched round ball. It has a rate of twist of somewhere around 1 in 66 inches. That's one turn in every 66 inches of barrel. And for saboted bullets, you need somewhere between 1 in 38 and 1 in 48 inches rate of twist. So your barrel probably won't stabilize the bullet even if you do use it. Other than that, it breaks with tradition, and that defeats the whole concept, the whole purpose of enjoying a flintlock is the tradition, the challenge, the primitive aspect, the satisfaction of taking game with it. And people try and cheat. They try and make it modern. They try and make it do something it wasn't designed to do. It's sacrilege. It's like mixing Coca-Cola with single malt scotch. It's like mixing ginger ale with Pappy Van Winkle bourbon. It's just not heard of. So, no Pyrex, no Savage bullets. You'll be a lot happier. I think we'll wrap this one up. I'm pretty sure I've covered everything. I may have missed one or two things, and that's quite probable. There's just too many variables out there not to. Everybody seems to have their own way to skin this cat, but in the end, it all boils down to a clean, dry barrel, a vent pick, and a sharp flint, and your gun's gonna go off. It doesn't have a choice. So I hope the things that we've talked about will help you enjoy your rifle, help you make it more dependable, and help you make you more successful in the field. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. And if you would just take a minute to hit the like button and possibly even subscribe, it just makes it all worthwhile from my end. Have a good day. Bye.